This video is sponsored by Dwight Street Book Club.
I'm gonna book 1,000 therapy sessions after this.
Alright, come on, you're a big girl. You deal with your problems. Operator, I'd like you to connect me to your finest mental health professional, please. Okay, it doesn't have to be the finest. Okay, you sure I can get a hold of the quickest? Yeah, oh, it sounds perfect. Alright, thank you, bye.
You have a medical license for this, right?
Of course.
Do you think that I could take a peek at that before we get started?
Do you really believe that's necessary, Autumn?
No. I'm kidding. We're good.
Great.
So, Dr. Sam, can I call you Dr. Sam, or do you prefer Dr. Reid?
Your pick. You can choose.
Okay, I'm sticking with Dr.
Whatever makes you feel
Sam.
more comfortable. Dr.
Yeah.
Sam. No.
Yeah, you seem like a cool doctor here, so I'm sticking with first names. As I said, I've just returned from Cumberland Island, where I received quite a motley of sunburns and bug bites, so I'm in a lot of physical pain, and that's only been exacerbated by the emotional pain of watching episode 7. Now I have aloe and calamine lotion for the physical ailments. Do you have any professional recommendations for getting over the gaping wound that's within my soul after watching the trial episode?
Enjoy it. Lean into it.
Fall into the well of emotion.
Yeah, lean into it.
I very much did. I have to say, I cried quite a bit. It's a little bit embarrassing.
Can I ask you a question about your background?
Go for it. Yeah.
Did you paint this background yourself?
I did.
That's very impressive.
Well, thank you.
That's very impressive.
Thank you.
What? So I've got death on one side, and on the other side you have what's this little thing? Yeah.
Well, this is what I thought the other angel was holding, which was like a funky little horn. You know, I don't know. I thought that she was one of those cool trumpeting angels of death. It's like, hey, I'm here. And come to find out, that angel's holding a baby, which I think is so much more hardcore and metal. And I tried to repaint with the baby, but it was a little bit frightening.
Yeah, I love it. It's amazing. I thought thank you that. It's incredible. Yeah.
Thank you. I thought it was such a good idea. And then I went into the very first interview with Hannah and I set it up and I'm like looking at myself in the Zoom video feed thinking, oh my God, this is deranged. She's not going to want to talk to me because I'm clearly a crazy person. So I'm glad that you enjoy it. Maybe it's just our shared derangement there.
Oh yeah. And also, I mean, we spent weeks and weeks next to these massive things. So it's quite nice to see them here in a more PG rated form, in a kind of friendlier, it's like you're holding a big sort of, that demon is holding like a big slug or kind of like a wiggly worm. Yeah,
that's what I intended. So I'm going to work our way up to talking about episode 7 because we need a little bit of levity to, break it all up because it's been a lot. So I'll ask you a couple of more lighthearted questions about the season and yourself. First of which being, when you go out on Friday nights and you're at your local karaoke club, which I know that you definitely do, and you're singing the entirety of the 10 album by Pearl Jam, do you sing as Sam or do you put on an Eddie Vedder voice for that?
Oh, Eddie Vedder voice, yeah.
Definitely. Eddie Vedder voice?
Yeah.
Are you going to be kind enough to give us a little sample?
Absolutely not. No.
Absolutely. I'll do mine if you do yours.
Absolutely. Karaoke is reserved entirely for the people that you get drunk with doing karaoke. So
I mean, yeah, I can't really say much about it. It's absolutely a drunk event.
Maybe we'll go karaoke one day, and
yes.
I'll do a song from 10, probably Jeremy or something like that, and we can maybe sing it together. But right now,
like I'm not opening myself up to that now.
Yeah, not now.
Not now. Okay, next week when you're here.
Yeah.
Next question. You are not a natural blonde. Have you found that blondes do have more fun?
I'm not a natural blonde. What am I? I guess I'm more like a strawberry blonde.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, fuck. I think I've always sort of assumed myself to be blonde, dirty blonde.
Oh my! Have I created a crisis here of self? I'm sorry.
If I don't identify as blonde, what do I identify as?
I definitely, I thought it was more strawberry. I thought there was a little bit more red to it, but maybe you know yourself better than I do.
My hair's been dyed red many times, and when it gets dyed brown, it goes red. And there was a period of time when I was living in London when I was in my 20s where my hair did really turn red. Like it just, it was a bizarre time. I don't think I ever saw the sun, and it went red. And I did feel, and it was weird because, at that time, my hair was red. I had a fake name, and all my agents were telling me to speak with a British accent. So I felt very, very confused about
That's where the identity of crisis came from.
Yeah, you really, really hit a nerve there with that one.
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to be lighthearted, and I've just dug up the trauma here.
I thought you were supposed to be one in therapy. Yeah. No, look, do I have more fun as a blonde? No, the blonder your hair is, the more damaged and uncomfortable it is, I'd say.
Always got to bring us down. Jeez. But have you acclimated to the length though? Have you finally adopted that into your personality? Do you do the Lestat hair flips at home for dramatic effect?
No, it's usually stuffed under a hat at home. It's not my favorite thing to live with. Yeah, it's a kind of complicated thing because it doesn't really fit into my day-to-day life. But it's actually interesting. The longer it's gotten, the easier it has been to tie back and stuff up under a hat. When it was at a kind of weird, awkward phase, that was kind of difficult. But it's not my thing to have the long hair. But it is what it is.
I mean, you could always do the really fancy, crazy braids in it. I think you could do a whole lot with your hair, create a new identity. Braid. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I've experimented a little bit with butterfly clips, and it's a lot of effort.
So obviously in this episode, we are finally seeing Lestat in the flesh for this first time, but he's still, maybe not the full version of Lestat because we have this, it's still a memory of Louis. Leading up to this, we've had Dreamstat and then Armand's version of Lestat in the 1700s. And even within this episode, it's a very layered performance of what feels true, what feels right. Did you just have a crazy spreadsheet in your dressing room of all the different versions of Lestat that you had to play and how to keep up with all of that?
So the trial, because there's a few different layers going on there. There's obviously the trial script. So that is a script. And it's obviously when Lestat goes off book, which, were quite a few very distinct moments. And then there were a few more that we added in, or I added in with negotiation with Roland and Hannah and Emma. And then there's that flicking between, we're kind of getting a montage of this is sort of not really happening. It is sort of complex in trying to work out. There's also this whole other level of knowing the whole overall arc of the show and the world and, where the show is going and where it's not going, that kind of stuff, where we've been, where Lestat's been, that you have to kind of seed without letting that overtake the story right now. So that was a bit complicated in trying to work out where the beats are that we're going to place those to make sure that that's going to read when we pick it up again later, if we do pick up this particular part later again.
You mentioned, you negotiated some extra little ad libs and scenes between Roland and Hannah and everything. Can you give us little examples
I definitely don't do it. We don't do any ad-libbing in this show. It's very script heavy. Like it's so written, very heavily written and beautifully written. And we honor those scripts, a lot. But it's intentions and and slight tweaks that we discuss. I discuss with Roland. For me, I found it really difficult to understand why so much personal information about Louis and Lestat's relationship together was being displayed in such a public, horrific way. Because I was confused about who knew this information. How did they find this out? And if the answer is that Lestat told them, for me, it was sort of complex. I couldn't really get my head around that. So there are a few discussions about, okay, Lestat's decided, okay, if he's going to do this, he's given out a few last minute amendments just before he's gone on stage and handed them out. So they knew that there were some things he was going to say that wasn't in the original script.
I love that the script has, by Santiago Sam Barkley with additions by Lestat Claudia.
Yeah, because I couldn't imagine how they would have found that information out, unless, of course, it's come from Louis telling Armand or some private mind conversation that they had kind of got inside of Louis's mind to find certain things out. So that was that. And then there was also elements I found I've really found kind of surprising and shocking. The whole "come to me" sequence that happens right at the beginning, and I really couldn't quite work out why we were doing it like this. Like I couldn't quite work out why. And it does feel like a horrifically mean trick.
Yeah.
For Lestat to come out and say that thing.
I mean, do you feel like it was a trick? Because everything is about perspective and stuff. And it feels, at least while I was watching it, that he is kind of playing along to the script. But so much leading up to that moment, he doesn't feel like his heart's really in it. When he's saying these lines, you can tell, he's a great actor, but I'm not fully buying it. And then you have this moment where he finally looks at Louis for the very first time, and you have this, thing where it seems like Lestat it's a planned moment for him to look at Louis at this point in time, and yet he's still unprepared for the effect that Louis has on him. And then what comes after this, to me, felt sincere, and almost it felt like just a difference in perspective, and how, to Louis, Lestat was calling to him and saying, "Come to me," but how Lestat saw the relationship play out was the complete opposite.
I agree, but that is scripted. I mean, it's quite clearly scripted because it's kind of like the way that the language is written. And I think that's why this is when it comes down to that little negotiation, because I was like, well, one of Lestat's big MOs is that he is a monster, an unlovable monster, and he kind of oscillates between loving that side of himself and hating that side of himself. I think there was this element which, when he says, "I, a vampire, was being hunted. I was being loved. And he loved me. Like I showed him for who I was, and he loved me." I think that probably is an amendment that the Lestat put in, because I think that's what meant something to him. Because if we take what we see in season 1 of the Louis transformation, where Lestat kind of like does a really brutal act in front of Louis, before saying, "I love you, and by the way, I want to be your immortal companion. Let's do it. But this is who I am." I think that meant something to Lestat, and hopefully meant something to Louis, because he's kind of displaying himself. So I think that was an amendment that Lestat put in. But the "come to me," he was calling me, "Come to me, come to me, come to me." I don't know. It feels very complex, and Louis and Jacob and I spoke about it quite a lot. And I think we came to the negotiation or understanding between the two of us that there was a mutual like yearning for each other.
Because Louis chimes in at this point. It's like the one time in the entire trial that Louis and Lestat actually kind of talk to each other at all. And it's for Louis to say, like, fuck you. That didn't happen. You said this to me. And you have this response, or, you know, Lestat has this response to Louis to say, like, well, how do you know it wasn't just your own repressed, you know, self screaming inside your mind that you mistook it for me? And so for me, that's why I felt like it was more true. And maybe he did have the script leading up to that point, but that response to what Louis is saying in that moment is maybe more reflective of what he felt. And at the end of the day, I mean, he does come to Louis in the church. And, you know, despite...
Yeah. I mean, I think probably they're calling come to me to each other. Or there's that's kind of like the vampire language for like yearning, because they kind of use it in every book and every love story. It's there, you know. Armand and Lestat, the come to me is there, you know. It's just kind of like there, that language. So I think it's very vampiric language, whether Louis was saying come to me or whether he was just, Lestat could feel that he wanted him to come to him in, you know, just physically. And I think it's very shocking for Lestat in that moment to be, you know, smacked in the face with, I didn't want you. I've always hated you. I didn't want anything, you know. Then he responds, then he's like, vicious side spikes up. And I think that's the point where probably you can see Lestat, I mean, from the beginning of the play, when he sort of walks on, you can sort of see that Lestat's like ready to fuck with everybody. Like every single person, every member, every vampire, every member of the coven,
me included.
He is ready to fuck with everyone. And I think that's kind of like the sort of crazy thing about this is why I've always struggled with this stuff with Lestat, when we have like a really big, long-winded kind of like plan, and the same sort of thing that happens with the stages of his death in season 1, is I don't think he's a planning character. He's not good at with a plan. He kind of goes with how he feels.
Exactly. He's an impulsive creature. He's all action, zero thoughts, head empty, pure action.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's just there and he's winging it, you know. But he's also had to learn some of these lines, which I don't think is very hard as a vampire. Yeah. But you know, there's still had to be some level of rehearsal that was involved with this process. So it was a bit of a mind fuck, really. So in the long-winded answer to your trailer map, there is a very specific map that was there, you know, and it was actually one of the only things that we ever really majorly rehearsed, and it was just me, Emma Freeman, and Ben Daniels, and we would just go into this little empty room in the studio, and we would rehearse the play bit, so that we could really work out what was rehearsed. And so when it broke out and when it changed in the shooting of it, we could that could feel organic. But the play itself and the way that it was supposed to go, we rehearsed it so we had a sense of that in our bodies.
Gotcha. That was going to be my very next question of asking. I mean, we have this like battle of the blondes between Santiago and Lestat's kind of like undermining this perfect play and this perfect trial that Santiago has come up with and everything, and, you know, developing that. So it's you've read my mind there. The vampire powers are on display. But so you mentioned the director, Emma Freeman, here. What was it like getting to reunite with her and see her in the vampire world versus the world of news?
Well, it's like I adore Emma, you know, and I've worked with her for many, many years. So and also Earl Dresner, who's the DOP of this, is also the DOP of the newsreader. So
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so we had a little Australian contingent, which I'm pretty sure is why Roland put that. I don't know. You know, it was Roland who put that reference to the Australians at the tennis.
Love
that. He loves his meta quotes or meta lines that sometimes just get even more confusing. But yeah, no, working with Emma is beautiful. Emma has an extraordinary way of maintaining momentum, particularly while shooting television, because we're under quite strict shooting schedules. We don't have that much time to shoot these things. So Emma has a way of shooting that we call a mega block, or that she calls a mega block. And what that means is you block out the entire shooting day, and then we run it as one singular scene and shoot that, usually in long takes. So in the newsreader, it's one thing, because we've got one thing, like we'll have a newsroom set and we'll run in and the camera will be following us, and we'll go into one room, into the next room, be scene. And you do like 5-minute scenes or something like that. And we're doing 4 scenes, like, stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
In To Do with the Vampire, in the play, it's one basic episode on one location. So we ended up doing 15, 20-minute takes of this fucking play. And it was they just kept going. We had to find points where, like, okay, I think we'll stop now. So it was really, and Emma thought it was really important to have a full audience. So that audience of supporting artists are there the whole time. Wow. They're always there. And so it was really like a play. Like the whole shooting of that was like a play. And yeah, Emma kind of, found the angles and the takes that she wanted, but she also just let it roll and, let things kind of unravel in the way that she does. And that's why she's so fantastic in developing characters' emotional arcs, because she kind of lets the work sort of unfold, and then she'll find the thing that she wants to hone in on and do that. But it was kind of exhausting, I gotta say.
Yeah. I'm doing like 15 to 20-minute takes at a time.
We did it for like, I think we shot that for like 11 days like that. And then, wow. and then we had the strikes right in the middle of that episode. So we stopped the episode 7 right in the middle of it, and then picked it back up again 3 months later. So
wow, having to carry that momentum, like that emotional momentum with the gap in between, that's insane.
It was unfortunate, but those strikes are important, and we all understood why they were happening. But it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's such an interesting episode, because as you mentioned, it's kind of similar to episode 5 in that, pretty much outside of the flashbacks, outside of the Dubai set, it does take place all in one location, following one trajectory of time. And I mean, so I guess it was just the sheer volume of having to, shoot for as long as you did. Was that what you found most challenging, or was it more just finding what was the most challenging aspect of all of that for you?
I think the challenging thing about that episode is it is the payoff of, it's the beginning of the payoff of the entire show. Mm-hmm. And it's confronting to analyze these things in this context. It's such a horrific context. And I found that very, very overwhelming, because this is so it's so fucked up.
It's
like this is so fucked up. And
every element, like from them blocking Claudia and Louis' minds, the slicing of the Achilles, them throwing Claudia in the rat box before all of this. Why did they need to do that? That was unnecessary.
And there's also this thing that I never forgot, was that this is Lestat's world. He built this place.
Yes.
He built this. I mean, obviously we don't fully find out the reality of it. For all intents and purposes, in season 2, through Armand's perspective, you kind of learn that he sort of did it with Armand, and Nicki's not really. We don't really touch on him, or Armand doesn't really touch on him. But regardless, this is and then that is important though, because
I mean, it's even important. I mean, we have the one, that little moment, but where you kind of, the one time where you address Armand is to kind of talking about Nicholas and what happened to him. And
and here we are again, and in this place. But I think Lestat is also like, I think he's a very proud, kind of vain creature. And there's this amazing, so just jumping all over the place, but I was just recently reading Vampire Lestat, and there's this amazing beat. I think it's when he's in Marius's house, like, you know, he's in Marius's sort of seaside,
cool little
tower.
Greek, cavern or whatever.
And that sort of goes. He's asleep, and then he wakes up, and he has one word, and it's vanity. He just like wakes up and says vanity. And I just think it's just like that. This guy is he's so cripplingly vain that he can't quite grasp the fact that he's in his domain, and yet, and then I think, and all of the things that have happened, and then, you know, I think here he's standing on stage, and he sort of realizes this is where Nicki died. This is where Louis and Claudia are going to die. I built this. This is hell on earth, and I made this.
It's the product of my own hands.
Yeah, and I think and then he's willing to burn himself down. He's willing to let the whole thing collapse, and I think that's when he can start to have like these like kind of existential moments where he's like, he forgets his vanity. He forgets that there's people watching him. He forgets his performance element, and you're just getting further and further down to like, you know, like, what is he? What is this? Where am I? What am I doing? How did I get here?
Yeah.
Who am I? Yeah.
And I do think kind of one of those moments, it's a beautiful little moment, it's kind of towards the beginning of the trial, is when he is reflecting upon when he turned to Louis, and, you know, he's like, I did it in the church on the altar, and he kind of is lost in the memory of it all. And then you have this fucking asshole in the audience that snaps him out of it. And I think it's such a great show of who Lestat is as a character, that instead of ignoring it, what does he do? He goes full on impulse, boom, vampire powers on full display in front of this entire mortal audience to be like, you're trying to make me feel shame? You're trying to humiliate me? Let me flip that back around on you and humiliate you and crush you in front of this entire audience. Because only I get to make myself feel this bad. Okay.
Yeah. Human Louis. I think he lets Louis make himself. Like, I think he hears Louis when Louis, you know, particularly when he apologizes, or when not, is it really an apology? But when he kind of acknowledges that he's done something that he even Lestat himself believes is completely unforgivable, and Louis is not willing to, you know, obviously, because he's on trial for his own death. I mean, it's just like it's the wrong time, the wrong place.
Exactly.
It's just
like, buddy,
bad time,
what are you doing to help the situation here? Like, how could he forgive you in this moment with the context of everything that's going on?
I don't know. I also don't even think that Lestat is like expecting Louis to forgive him. I think he already knows that he won't. I don't think he forgives himself. I think that the thing that what we're always trying to work towards with Lestat, or what I am and Roland, I believe, is there's a sentiment that he has, is that he has this kind of, well, you know, Lestat, you better not die, because if you do, you will end up in hell. You probably will end up in hell. And I think there's this element. There is so much shame that he carries, because he is coming to terms with the fact that he is an evil being. It's very tormenting for him, but he does things because it feels so good to be bad.
Yes.
It feels so good. Why does it have to feel so good? And it's like he's like an addict, you know what I mean? He just can't stop himself from making the worst out of every situation. And it just and I think it's like this, it's this slow sort of progression, slow march of this character to get to this place, you know. And so the events of the trial is sort of accumulation of all of those things. And so yeah, this is we're sort of getting this, like, you know, if he's going to apologize, why would you apologize now? Like, why would you do it?
Yeah.
You know, why would you do that then? But what other opportunity is he ever going to have to see Louis again? Potentially, you know, this is it. He hasn't come out of his way to see him, as far as we know, you know, in terms of the plot.
The question that I had, you know, while first watching it, I've come to my own conclusions since rewatching it, because of course I've rewatched it like 5 times now. But the first time I'm watching it, I'm sitting there saying to myself, why is he doing this? Why is he going along with this? What is the goal here for Lestat? And I mean, for you, what was that? What is he doing here in Paris?
What the fuck is he doing? Well, firstly, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, and I want to be clear by saying that, because there's a lot of reasons why he's there. There could be a lot of potential reasons why he's there, and so they all have to be they all have to be present and functioning and operating in the episode, in case we want to take up any one of those at a later date.
Yeah.
So which one, I don't know. I know which one it is from the books, but I don't know if we're going to do that in our adaptation, because it is an adaptation.
Yes.
So all I can say is, like, why is he there? Well, he can't not be there. There's no world in which he cannot not be there.
Yeah.
You know. So if Louis and Claudia are going to die, Lestat will be there. And if, you know, they're going to live, Lestat will be there. But and they're in his theater. It's his space, his world.
Yeah.
He loves this place to Armand, to Nicki, to that coven, who have changed quite dramatically, but one or two of them are still there. You know, he's not. There's no way he's not going to be there. And I think that's all it is. So I think he finds himself on the stage, and he's like, "What the fuck am I doing here?" But I can't not be here. This is it. This is life. This is vampiric existence, you know. And it's also his first attempt at a life, like a real life, you know, at a real because, you know, if you think about where he's come from and his life beforehand, obviously I'm older than Lestat in the books, so we've got a few years to pack on. And where are we gonna add those before he gets turned into a vampire? I assume we've got two choices. We're either going to put those years in Paris in the theater, or, which I think is less likely than what I think about, is I put them in the countryside with his family, where he was literally just living as their kind of
dirty,
hunter,
grubby little
trainer,
wolf killer.
Yeah, but I mean, he didn't really do it. He was just kind of like kept, you know, confined to the rooms, wasn't allowed to have dreams, wasn't allowed to have ambitions, had a really weird dynamic with his mum. You know, there's, I think, and then he got to Paris, he got out of there, he stepped on the stage, he got dragged off the stage, and he got turned into a monster, and then his life began. Yeah. And all of a sudden the world opened to him, and as a monster though. And so he was a fiend, like needing to go for everything, eat everything, absorb everything. And, you know, Marius goes, like, you need to chill out. You need to go and live a life. You need to go have a family. You need to go fall in love, live that out, and like have a life. So he goes off and tries to have a life, but he's too chaotic at that point. He's too naive. He's too young, and he makes an absolute mess of it. Like he makes a huge mess of the love of his life, the one he'll never love anyone as much again. And you know, they had the potential to have something very beautiful, but he's too messy and chaotic. And Louis and Lestat are also like together. Their dynamic is very, you know,
it's the best. They have like exactly what each other needs, but also what everything that makes both of them the worst parts of themselves and the best parts of themselves. And
I think That's kind of cool. When we revisit that scene from episode 5 in season 1, and you see that in the trial, I think there's something like really wildly beautiful between the two of them in that violence, because Louis is like unhinged and angry at Lestat, and I think Lestat is more, obviously he's way more powerful, and his act of violence is, like unforgivable. But there's this space, that private space that they have in the coffin room, which is like, that's how much they hate each other. That's how much Louis hates him. And that's how much Lestat is like, hurt, and then turns into his violent, angry, I hate you. So that they have that much hate, they also have that much love, because they're also vampires, and so they operate on like a level of like
emotion that's dialed up to
pure chaos. But see, an action that they're operating on that level, and then Lestat, drops him from the sky, and it is an irredeemable event in their relationship. It cannot come back from that, and it creates this kind of cascading set of events that leads to Lestat being killed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's that's part of our adaptation. It's not necessarily the real events in Anne Rice's books, but this is what in our adaptation. And and I think it does feed into that overall sentiment that Lestat acknowledges his evil, hellish, self-loathing self, that is there, and we obviously heighten things and make it bigger, but
I mean, do you think in that moment too, because watching that scene, because that's obviously something that in season 1 you know that there's something else going on the other side of the wall, because you can hear the fight dies down, there's a break, and you think it's over, and suddenly it starts back up again, and we have this moment of Lestat taking Louis into the sky. We finally get to see what that moment was. And Louis is chilling. Oh my God. That little laugh that he does is he's like, I'm going to cut your head off, I'm going to feed it to the lions, and I'm going to laugh about it. I mean, do you think for Lestat in that moment, because what leads to Louis saying that is Lestat asking, are you going to leave me? Had Louis just said, yeah, walked out the door and left with Claudia, would that have led to the explosion? Was it the act of him leaving, or was it the words that instigated, and that just level of vitriol?
I don't know. I don't know about that, and I don't know if it's worth speculating what would have happened if it didn't happen. But I think more importantly is that, and this is something that I felt has been really important about playing Lestat from the beginning, and probably something that people find probably a little bit confronting. But for me, for Queen of the Damned to work, Lestat has to have a level of toxic male rage in him. Yeah. So when he is angry and when he's violent, it has to be a toxic masculine rage. For Akasha to, follow through with the events that she does and why she picks that.
To look at him and say, you are everything about masculinity that's like wrong and terrible and right, and so that's why you're going to be my right-hand guy.
Yeah, that's it, and you're going to help me like kill them all. And I think, so I always felt like when he does have those spurts of anger, it does have to come from a very toxic place, because that's, where we're going when we're looking at it. Obviously there's a scene that whole season 1, he's had a drink of this like fountain that nobody knows he's had. Nobody knows. No one in the show. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows. The only person who knows is Lestat. And nobody, and most of the people watching the show don't know this at this point in time.
Yeah, there's just that one little throwaway line about those who must be kept, and then nothing else.
And originally in season 1, when they're in the sky and they're having that moment, Lestat actually tells Louis about what he has inside of him, who he's drunk from, Now, I'm trying to be really vague for anyone who's watching this and is has no idea, and I'm not going to give anything away, but anyone who does know will know. But originally, he's up in the sky. So that, and I think that is the parallel line that we're drawing with that level of rage that Lestat has, that toxic, abusive rage, is also coming from an extreme, monstrous power.
Yeah.
It's like coming from this intense monster power that he has no idea how to control. He's trying to repress it all the time, but he knows, like, if somebody just ticks him off a bit, and he's a volatile guy already, but he's got this thing to make him go, and
it's almost going back to that like element of vanity that you're talking about, being like, you would do this to me, you don't even know what I have within me.
Exactly. So and that also means that we can feed that like shame and shock into his monstrous self, and acknowledgement of his monstrous self into his like progressive spiral into where we're going.
So we're talking about, shooting these episodes, these little flashback sequences of the fight. We also have this little flashback sequence of, the turning of Claudia and everything like that. And I feel like, you have been on the Lestat defense team for the past 2 years with so many things, lots of vitriol thrown Lestat's way after season 1 and how he's been portrayed. And now with the trial, we're seeing these little glimpses of where you're starting to come to some understanding about where maybe Lestat was coming from, and especially so with the turning of Claudia, because how it plays in season 1, it's almost like, yes, Louis does ask Lestat, but Lestat is almost seizing this opportunity to baby trap Louis a bit, whereas now we're seeing that, no, it was very much Lestat tried to warn him, he refused him, but ultimately it was this promise that Louis makes that, like, hey, if you do this thing for me, I'm never ever going to leave you. And that's the one thing that's most important to Lestat to hear, and that's why he does it. Is this giving you like some sense of satisfaction to finally be like...
No, I mean, it's funny because when we were shooting those scenes, both Jacob and I were just like, oh my God, this show's so fucked up. This is so fucked up. The hell is happening? But I think Claudia's transformation is more actually about, for Lestat, is more about Nicki than anything else, and it's about our adaptation and our seeing our perspective on Nicki as a show, as an adaptation. I think Lestat has seen what happens to someone when they are not prepared to become a vampire.
Gotcha.
And that's a big part of why he loves Louis and picked Louis, is because he saw, and he was mistaken. He was mistaken, but he saw in Louis the potential of a really fantastic vampire. And he really thought about it. I mean, he just felt deeply in love with him, but he really thought about it. It's like, this guy's going to be, it's like the whole premise is like, I saw him hold a knife to his brother's throat.
Yeah.
I saw him, I see this whole world that he's living in, and he's like, he has so much potential to thrive in a kind of immortal life. I know he can do it.
Be a monster like me.
In him. And he totally misread that Louis has so much to deal with in his own human existence that he's actually like just not ready to become a vampire. He probably would be a very good vampire, just not ready. He needs to deal with a lot of other stuff first. But Claudia, no, it is a bad choice. This is a bad choice to become a vampire. A really, really, really bad choice.
Yeah.
And it's not what he wants, because he's seen that pain. He's experienced that pain. He's turned somebody who was not meant to be one, who lost their mind, and he carries the guilt of that transformation. And he loved him, and he was miserable, and it's just and he died. you know, and it was horrific. It took him hundreds of years to get over it, or 100 years to get over it. Why would you want to do this to yourself, Louis? Like, why do you want this? You don't even know her.
Yeah.
You've never even met her. You don't even know what she's like. You know? The interesting thing about it, though, is that he underestimates her massively.
Yeah.
He massively underestimates Claudia because she ends up becoming, I think, an incredible vampire.
Yeah.
Amazing vampire. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think she talks a lot throughout the season, obviously, about how she has this war within herself. But yeah, I think that's something that I talked with Assad a lot about too. It's just the underestimation of Claudia, how with Armand as well, he hasn't made up in his mind that she's not going to last. And you really get the sense, especially after episode 6, where she finally finds Madeleine and they're going off together, and she has this companion that she really could have made it if some people hadn't decided to be bitches about everything and ruin it all for us.
Horrendous. Yeah, they really, you know, and I mean, that's the great tragedy of Louis and Lestat, really. And neither of them, you know, and I guess that's a big part of why Louis is doing this interview as well, is trying to process these events that have happened. But I don't think, you know, Lestat's never going to get over that. And she will haunt him for the rest of his life.
And I hope that we see that literally, and you know, other seasons and everything. We've laid the groundwork for Delaney to come back. We've had Dream Stat. We can have Dream Claudia come back.
Yeah, and absolutely. But also ghosts do exist in the Anne Rice universe. They're a real thing. We haven't really done that yet because like Dream Stat was definitely a hallucination of Louis. Like it wasn't Lestat kind of visiting him as an actual ghost. But
but that's also deciding how far into the supernatural they want to go.
I think we should go full hunk.
Full balls to the walls. I'm ready for Memnoch, you know, him going on his little adventure with the devil into the afterlife and all of those crazy little realms there.
I love that book. I mean, it's, you know, it does have some bits in it. It's like, oh my God. But, you know, like this is also Memnoch is a really important book because he's got to get to the point. Lestat has to be so bad that he believes that the devil will come to him and say, you know what? You are perfect to be my right-hand man. I'm the devil, and Lestat, you are perfect to be my assistant. And Lestat's got to be like, yeah, I guess I am.
I guess I am. I'm going to have a conversation with God and still weigh my options after that. Drink the blood of Christ on his way to Golgotha.
And lose an eyeball on the way. You know. I think it's got it. We have to like get him now. We've, you know, in terms of this, where he's been pre Louis and post Louis, like post Louis or post the events of the trial and the events of season 2. I think we've got to get him to the place where he is just has no self-respect, or no, he's got a lot of self-respect. Unfortunately, he's a vain guy. He's got no. He's like gone. Do you know what I mean? He's just a gone creature.
Yeah, no sense of being held back by anything.
Yeah, and he's got to claw back to his humanity. He's got to find it again.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of Louis and Lestat, because Lestat shows him the potential of being a monster and how beautiful you can be as a monster. And Louis, you know, shows Lestat how beautiful you can be if you hold on to your humanity. And they are the yin and yang to each other. And I think Louis discovers, like, actually being a vampire is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I think Lestat discovers actually being human is also incredibly valuable and important.
Yeah. But not literally, because obviously in Body Thief, he's like, God, being a human fucking sucks.
No, not literally, just a human
But
side.
yeah, holding on to that
no.
essence of humanity while still having all of the like crazy, amazing flying superpowers and immortality thing.
Yeah. Although, you know what? I mean, but he does take the option in Body Thief.
He does.
He does go like, I want that. I'm going to do it. I want to be a human again. I want to do it.
And then immediately almost dies. He's so bad at it. He's so bad at being a human. He's so good at being a vampire and a monster. But again, the journey of refinding that humanity, despite being a human, he doesn't find it when he is a human. He finds it later on, eventually down the line, once he's returned to his vampiric self. You know, I think one of the most powerful elements of the episode for me is this kind of recognition that goes on between the arc of like Claudia and Lestat over the course of the trial, which is something very unexpected that I wasn't anticipating us seeing, because you know, with where we were in season 1 and where we left off there in season 1, it seems very much like the love is not there. Obviously, Claudia hates Lestat. It seems Lestat hates Claudia. He tries to kill her in the finale. Whereas here, he's talking, you know, respectfully about her, and she was a surprising joy, and she was a great killer, and she's an artful predator, and I see the best of my vampiric self within her. And then Claudia too kind of has this moment where she stands up and she's like, okay, fine, you get to have your apology. Is it now my time to have my apology here and say, I'm sorry, and am I going to be allowed this like element of forgiveness that you're also asking for? And then it's all finished off at the very end, you know, where who is it that she looks to as she's dying? It's Lestat. And it's just such a beautiful like tragedy of they almost kind of come together finally in this final moment.
It's a lot to do with perspective, because, you know, and we spoke a lot about it in season 1. And it was something that I was struggling with a little bit, because I knew that, you know, as we progressed on, more light was going to be shone on Lestat and Claudia's relationship, in terms of, I can't, you know, comfortably sit here and say that they had a great relationship, but there were moments when they loved each other and they understood each other. But the worst things that Lestat does to Claudia, I mean, there's quite a lot of terrific things that he does to Claudia in season 1, but a lot of them are, you know, like particularly like Charlie, you know, when he's talking about when you know, and you know, he seems so callous when she is talking about Charlie and the love of her life, and I think a lot to do with it is a perspective of your more morally strict parent. Not that you could call Lestat moral, but you know, your parent who's trying to, like, you know, say like, well, you know, clean up after your mess. And she's like, I just killed the boy who I've got a huge crush on. And it was like, well, this is why you should never get close to models, and we're going to show you, I'm going to make you watch him burn. Now, you know, there was a big discussion about how we're going to do that, how we're going to show it. And we chose in the end to show him more like that strict parent, and how Claudia would have how it would have felt to a 14-year-old kid at the time. To look kind of like, you know, you're a completely insensitive and ignorant and inane parent who has no idea the depth of your emotion. I think probably Lestat probably did understand what she was going through, because he lived it, and he was trying to prevent her from having that same experience, but he has no experience himself of being a parent or having any good parent.
Yeah, I was going to say, he has no baseline for what good parenting might look like.
Zero baseline. And so, you know, I think you can see very easily how their relationship started to degrade and, you know, collapse. And it's such a shame that he wasn't more skilled at parenting. Because if Claudia was an adult and she didn't require some kind of, you know, assistance in like adapting to normal life, I think Lestat and Claudia would have been a dream team. Yeah. They just would have gotten on so well. But the fact that he required, because Louis is so, you know, Louis had sisters, and a huge, incredible way that Jacob plays Louis. And I think it's like, total testament to his performance, and also him as a person, is there's an incredible warmth to him.
Yes.
It makes him incredibly paternal. And more understanding of a child's journey than Lestat is ever going to be, And so it's like a great missed opportunity between Claudia and Lestat, because, all he wanted was somebody to embrace their vampiric self and go nuts with him every once in a while, and kill a few people in the bayou, but then clean up after yourself and hide and go back to our fun normal life. Let's not live like Lestat's like, let's not live. None of you guys want to live in a coven. The covens are rules by rules and random shit. It's not for fun.
Vampires don't need rules. Why have rules?
Yeah, vampire coven life is not what you want. You want to go off and be one of the solitary vampires that travel around. But yeah, so I think it's a real shame. And it's very, I just don't think he's ever going to get over Claudia. I think he saw her face at the end, and she said him at the end. And that image, because she looked at him helpless, completely helpless, like a child.
Yeah, it wasn't like it wasn't like punishment. It was like a cry for help. And I mean, I know I was sitting there on the couch being like, do something, man.
Do something. Yeah.
Please. And yet he doesn't. How do you think he's going to reconcile that with himself moving forward?
I don't think he will. Yeah. I don't think he will. And, I wish he did, but he doesn't. And he doesn't in the books either.
No.
I don't think it's not but yeah, I don't think he ever will recover from it. I think actually it's one of those things that you carry with you forever.
Yeah.
For me, secretly, I hope that he never gets over it, so that he's continually haunted by Claudia for the rest of his life. So we have plenty of the show coming up all the time. But yeah, I just don't think he'll never get over it. Yeah. What the fuck is wrong with you? Stand up, do something.
Do something. And I mean, you get the sense of like, had that been Louis who was on the butcher block there, I don't think that Lestat could have let him go. I think even if it ended up Lestat dying as well, he would have at least moved and done something in that moment. And it's kind of, I don't know, for me, I kind of maybe interpreted the reason I can come up with for why he doesn't move is, yet again, time and time again, choosing Louis over Claudia, because he knows if Lestat threw himself out there to try and save her, then, if he was unsuccessful and he ends up dying, then there's no hope of like trying to help Louis later on. Whereas at least as long as if he doesn't move and he stays off to the sidelines, there's still maybe this hope that he can help out Louis in the future.
We are doing an adaptation, and my Lestat is different to Anne Rice's Lestat. I try and be as honourable as I can to her work, but I also have to acknowledge that Roland and Hannah, but really Roland Jones has adapted this character, and his version of it is, I love it. I think it's exquisite, but I think it's different. You gotta accept that, and I think it's for the best, because what it means is that we have an extraordinary Louis in our show. We've got an amazing Louis, and I think that character kind of lost its pizzazz a bit in the books, and I think the way that he's been built, he won't lose that. But that means maybe some elements have been taken from one character instead of another character and given to another character, and history beats and little bits have been entwined. But we have an extraordinary Louis, and Jacob is extraordinary as Louis. So I think all the characters have to kind of have a little bit of a chess piece
Mm-hmm.
move around a bit to make sure that continues to function.
They stay present. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Roland has said in the past that, we're not going to, Louis is sticking around. We're not getting rid of Louis. We're not following necessarily in that realm of the books. But I know a lot of people still hold very tight to keeping the same trajectory and through line with the books. I mean, like, but what if we're going to lose Jacob? And I'm like, no.
I don't think I also got to remember how big and thick these books are.
Yeah.
like it's impossible to do the whole book, and so like you could even make a whole show about the times just when Louis turns back up in these episodes, but I don't think we will. But I don't know what we're doing because that's above my pay grade. But I don't see a world in which Louis is not going to remain as big a character as he is. I mean, it's that's the fun. It
would be stupid. It would be stupid to get rid of him because Jacob's so good.
Yeah, I want to see them destroy each other. I want to see them get back together. I want to see the dynamic between Louis, Lestat, and Gabrielle.
Yeah,
that's what what's it like? What happens when Louis and Gabrielle turn up while Lestat's trying to do some insane rock concert? Like what is that? What's that dynamic about? I want to see them in the car when they're escaping from explosions, and like what is that? I'm really curious.
Yeah. I will allow us to wrap this up because I appreciate how much time you've given me here. This has been fantastic. Do you have any words of encouragement for the troops out there leading into the finale for what to expect?
I've got no words of encouragement. You know what you're doing. Enjoy it. It's actually, I think it's actually beautiful. I love this episode. I love episode 8, the one that's coming. Yeah, I think it's Roland at his finest. There is some, we're so lucky to be led by such a confident filmmaker. He is so ballsy, and it is terrifying sometimes being a part of his world because Roland, and he says this to me often, he's like, piss people off, piss them off, let them be pissed off, let people be angry, you want to have a visceral reaction to the people you engage with, and he doesn't shy back from that. He allows an audience to have a very visceral, guttural reaction to the experience of watching a show, and that's why it's good. It's very intense being a part of something like that. And so, episode 8, I think episode 8 is actually quite satisfying. It's painful, but it's quite satisfying. Yeah.
Well, on that note, I don't know if you saw in the editor's note, but I always do a shot with everybody.
Yeah. That's a big shot glass you've got. What are you drinking?
This is what I call vampire blood. It's vodka with some pomegranate liqueur to give it the color.
Fancy. Well, I'm just drinking straight up whiskey, so cheers.
I love that. This is to being shot through the heart by Sam Reid's portrayal of Lestat Claudia in episode 7 and the entire season of Interview with the Vampire. So cheers to you.
Cheers to you, Autumn.
Thank you so much for chatting with me for all of this time. This has been dream come true. And here's to hoping we get to have more fun little conversations in the future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, by the time this video comes out, I think you're going to have some other stuff to talk about.
Really quick, finish the lyric for me. Come to me.
You little whore.
Yes! Was the conception of that like it felt? I know you said earlier that you don't like ad lib anything; everything is very scripted. But with doing the song, it sounds very off the cuff. Is that just because you're a fantastic actor, or were you kind of playing around in the studio with different versions of this?
I mean, what I call him, Little Whore, or like when I'm like, oh, that's good. That's quite good.
Yeah.
Like I do it with Rowan, so I'm in the studio with them, and we try lots of different ways. We play around. Rowan's like, why don't you say this here, or say this here, or like I'll throw things in. But we're doing it together. It's a collaborative process. He is the best. Some of the best lines in the show. Like my favorite from season 1 is when I'm like, I don't know about that pleated skirt, and Jacob's like, it's chiffon. It has movement. That Roland came up to us because there was like, we had a bit more time to fill because it took Bailey a bit longer to get over to the to the statue or her mark in the background. So we had to fill more time. He's in with these lines and like bam, bam, bam. And they're so glorious. But I think, I was like, oh, that's quite good. That was Roland. He was like, say that's quite good there, in that point. I mean, I don't try, if anything, I try and omit lines. I think for me, the only time I can really think of like a point where I specifically put in a line consciously is in the Magnus speech in season 1, where, because I knew it was going to be done in a single take, I put in a line and I said, I didn't want this. That wasn't originally there in the script, because I felt it was very important that we knew that Lestat never wanted to become a vampire.
Yeah, he fought against it.
He said no. I mean, I think his transformation is just horrendous, horrific.
Yeah.
And so I think it was important for me to put that in there. And I knew that I could put it in there because I knew they were going to do it in one single take.
So and that's right there at the beginning. So what are they going to do? Stop.
Don't get out. No. But I respect Roland's words so much, and Hannah's words. Anytime I want to make a change or anything, like it's usually a 45-minute phone conversation where we discuss it at length. Anytime there's any change, they think about this so much.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. This has been fantastic, and I'll talk to you later.
Later. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. I think after that theater performance, when Claudia gives her a ride home, was she prim and proper and had Madeleine in the sidecar, or were they, buddied up on one bike?
I would wish for one of them. That's all I can say. I don't know, but I would wish for a bike.
I'm seeing one bike too.
Yeah? Okay, good.
Yeah, we're on the same page. We're making this official. They were on the same bike together.
One bike. Absolutely.